Hello, I'm Mike Watts, publisher of RiversandFeathers.com, a website devoted to short stories on just about anything fly fishing. Welcome to our Rivers and Feathers instructional fly tying videos. Along with Alex Hawley, a former student and teaching assistant in fly fishing and fly tying, and an excellent fly tyer, we'll be leading you on the different patterns and recipes as we go along our journey, and use these patterns to help you catch more fish. Alex will also talk about some of the techniques on how to fish the flies and where to fish them as he explains the recipes. Welcome to Rivers and Feathers.
Today we're going to be tying the pheasant tail Frenchie nymph. We're going to be tying it on a size 14 with a copper bead. So to begin this fly, we'll use a fulling mill size 14 jig hook with a size 2.4 millimeter copper bead. For thread, I'm using a UTC 140 in the red color. And to begin this fly, I like to make 3 or 4 wraps starting at the head, just to make sure that the thread is secured. I'll then trim my excess thread and continue my wraps towards the bend of the hook. From here, we'll start to tying our tail. For this, I usually like to pull off about 6 fibers of pheasant tail, and you can pull them right from the stem. You want to make sure on this fly to have a nice even tail, make sure all the fibers are matched up as best as you can. And usually I like to measure up the tail about the length of the hook shank. So from there, I'll hold it with my left hand and I'll make one loose wrap over it, getting the placement right, followed by a second wrap that's a little bit tighter, and then I'll continue these wraps towards the bead on the hook. From there, I'll take my excess and trim it off. To continue this fly, I then take copper wire. I'm using a size small for this fly. I usually like to cut off about 2 to 3 inches just so I have enough room to tie this with. And when I'm tying in things that I'm going to use as a body, I like to tie them in on either side of the fly. That way when I'm wrapping, it's all even. So this, for the wire, I'll be tying it in on the side closest to me. And I like to tie about halfway, starting at the midpoint of the hook. And then I'll take my pheasant tail again, and I'll grab another 5 to 6 fibers. But this time I'll actually be tying them in tip first. This way I have a little more wiggle room if I need to change anything. And you want to tie it in all the way where you finish tying in your tail at the back of the hook shank. Once you have your pheasant tail that you'll be using for your body and your copper wire tied into the back of the hook, you can then begin moving your thread forward towards the bead where you'll leave it. From there, I'll begin taking my pheasant tail fibers and making smooth wraps towards the bead of the hook. For a Frenchie fly, I usually only tie it with a dubbing collar. So I'll take my pheasant tail and wrap it all the way to the bead. From there, I'll take my thread and make one wrap over it and one wrap in front of it, making sure it's nice and secure. Once you feel like it's nice and secure, you can go ahead and trim your excess. It's important to note which way you were wrapping your pheasant tail, as you want to counter wrap it with your wire. in which case you want to make open spirals towards the bead of the hook, following your pheasant tail. And what this does is secure your pheasant tail from moving anywhere. Once that's done, you can either helicopter it off or you can simply trim it off, whichever you feel works best for you. If you don't want to dull up your scissors, helicoptering it off is your best option. Now, what I like to do is I like to take a little peacock herl dubbing. Remember, whenever you were using dubbing, that less is more. So I only have a little pinch here. Now I'm going to create a dubbing noodle by just simply taking that dubbing and spinning it on the thread very tightly so I have a very small dubbing noodle. I'll then take this and slide it up the thread where it will meet the fly. Make sure that it's still tight after sliding. And now all I'm going to do is make wraps on top of itself to create a collar. So once all your dubbing has run out, I then like to finish up the fly with about 2 or 3 wraps, just so I can start to see the color of the thread. And lastly, we're going to whip finish it off. I usually like to make about 4 to 5 wraps on a whip finish, just to make sure it's good and secure. Give it a nice pull and trim it off. And that is the pheasant tail Frenchie. I like to fish this in a little colder months, especially when mayflies are present, as well as I like to fish it down deep. You can also change this fly with a little larger bead to get it down towards the bottom. It really fishes well in all conditions, and this is definitely a fly that I have in my box.
Thank you for tuning in to our Rivers and Feathers YouTube video on instructional fly tying. Also, be sure to tune in to the RiversandFeathers.com, where you'll find short stories on just about anything fly fishing. And we want to give a special thanks to RiverVice. They have supported our efforts in our instructional videos, and we've enjoyed our revolution. And on that vise, you can tie anything from midges to monster flies. Remember, RiversandFeathers.com.